Mic check 1 2. You sure the mic working? I bet, cause I don't want to mess up nothing. I'm Boring Friends. We keep it authentic, funny, and inspirational. Welcome to the episode. Oh, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, do anything you want to just support us. And let's just get into this. Ah man, I love this.
I am your host, Christian Barr, and you are listening to the Barr and Friends podcast. This is my first morning pod, so I am extremely excited. We had to work around some schedules, but we were able to make it do what it do. This woman that is on this pod today needs no introduction. She's a wife, mother, certified life coach, entrepreneur, speaker, was a poet. Maybe she'll bring that back out again. And she has her own podcast, which we will get into later. She's originally from the DC area, but now she's repping VA. I'm sorry that I have to mention this, but she did marry a Mike Jones. Who?
Mike
Mike Jones.
Jones.
Coach K, how you doing?
I am very well. I'm feeling good. I'm really excited to be here on the Bar and Friends podcast. And when I listened to the episode that you sent me, like when you invited me to be on the pod, and I was listening and I listened to the whole thing, and I'm like, this is definitely the type of podcast that I want to be on. Because it's a lot of podcasts out here. They just do a whole lot of talking, but there's not a lot of edification going on. So I appreciate you for that. And so yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Not a problem. I'm just so happy that you said yes. Most importantly, that the Lord told you yes. So
Yes,
glory to his name for that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So I just want to kind of just give you a little bit of a backstory. So I actually joined a community of podcasters on a group chat or whatever you want to call those, like groups on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And I just saw you pop up. I think you posted something on the group chat or group post. And I'm like, you know what? She would be a great guest on BNF. So I just reached out to you. I was a little bit scared. I ain't gonna lie though, coach, because
Why?
you be so professional. And I'm like, dang, she put Oprah Winfrey type of vibes up.
Chill. Oh my
So I
goodness.
went through all the questionnaire and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope that she'll say yes. And so when you responded back, I was just so happy that you agreed to come on the pod and just to, chop it up with me. So I am forever grateful. Thank you.
This is amazing. Thank you for, conquering those fears, if you will, because obedience works in different ways. If it was comfortable, it would be easy and everybody would be doing it. So sometimes you just got to put yourself out there in order to get to the places that you want to be.
Okay. You preaching already. See, we
All
haven't
right.
even
Listen, I
started.
came ready. I came ready. Locked and loaded. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so my first question to you is I would love for you to go back and give us a brief recap of your childhood life up to now. Because I believe that there are things that we were exposed to as a child slash teenager that formed us. Hold on, Christian, don't get preachy now. That formed us to doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So kind of give us some cliff notes into the life of Coach K.
100%. I love that you said there is something that happened to us, in our childhood and our teenage years that really shaped us to who we are today, because that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what happened. And anytime someone is trying to find like their gift or their purpose, I tell them to think back, like what was it that lit you up before?
Yes.
Because it's always in what I call the blueprint. It was in our blueprint, our original design. So as a child, I mean, I've had a fairly regular childhood. I was raised by my mom and my nana for the most part. My stepdad came into my life when I was 5. But my mom was like super hard. She was the backbone. You know what I mean? Like she was tough. She had that independent woman front and everything. My nana also very independent, but she had that softness to her, that spiritual side. So I was kind of raised by the best of both worlds, and I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for, having both and not one or the other. But I always knew that I wanted to help people more so in elementary and middle school. Don't ask me, Christian, what type of advice I was giving my peers at that point in life. But I was always the one in the friend group who gave, like the best advice. And people always came to me like they knew that Kayla would know what to do in this situation, or Kayla would know what to say. And from there, it kind of sparked that I love this, doing this. And it was natural. It wasn't something that I thought about until it was a continuous trend. Like it just kept happening. And so same thing, even through high school and, rearing the end of high school, you think about, what do I want to major in college? No brainer, psychology, right? I want to learn more about the brain and more ways of how I can help people. And I wanted to be a marriage and family counselor, actually. So that's pretty fun, because I guess most of the advice that I gave was, in relationships. So, the little schoolyard relationships, the boyfriend, girlfriend, cute, sit with me. Oh, he didn't hold my hand today. What's up with that? But I had something for all of it. And so that's what kind of I wanted to, I guess, help keep families together or bridge the gap if there was any way, to reconcile a marriage. I wanted to have a hand in that. So it was always in my blueprint to do some form of coaching, right?
Right.
And it, of course, as I went through college, I'm like, oh, psychology, this is heavy. And then you get into the psychiatry where they prescribe meds, and I'm like, hold on, this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. And there's a lot of ropes and lines that I can't cross. And I want to be able to coach people freely in the way that I want to do it, not necessarily by like these specific guidelines. I felt like it took a lot of the creativity out of it. So I made it my business to figure out how I could still have some type of credential to say, yeah, I can coach you or I can do this. And that's when I came across, life coaching certification, which is a very credible life coach institute, might I add.
Okay.
And I've been certified to do that since 2016, and it was exactly what I was looking for. And because I got certified so young, I was 22, 21 or 22. I was the youngest person in my life coach class. The next person that was close in age to me was 36. So I got a lot of the, you haven't experienced enough life yet, and how can you be a life coach if you haven't really experienced life and you're so young? I'd want someone older and blah, 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 blah. Okay. But anyways, long story short, I didn't let that stop me. Or I did actually for a little while, because it wasn't until last year where I really made or took the plunge to go head on with my life coaching business and dive straight in. Of course, by God's advice or by his suggestion, because I wasn't thinking about it anymore. Still doing some form of coaching because I was a fitness coach. And then it was the end of 2022 when God was like, okay, I need you to pick up, your coaching business again. And I was like, you know what happened last time? He's like, I don't care about that. That's not what I asked you. Pick it up again, because this time's going to be different. I said, okay. And I trusted him, and here we are.
I want to go back. I want to go back. I want to go back to your childhood. You didn't mention your biological father.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in your life? What happened there?
My biological father, he had a very rough childhood that, and everything that happens in your childhood does shape you as an adult. And there's no like ill feelings or resentment towards him at all. Because when I got older, my mom kind of explained, what happened to him as a childhood. And it helped me to understand like, oh gosh, like he just truly was never in the mindset to be present. But the last time, I've seen him maybe twice in my life, once when I was 9 and then again when I was 11. And it was fine, but, there wasn't really a relationship there. But it was also never something that I yearned for either. Like, people say you can't miss what you've never had. So I didn't exactly really know what I was missing. And I was loved on so heavily by everyone in my family, my mom, my nana, and my cousins and my uncles. And so I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Like I know of the importance, obviously, because I made it my mission and business to have the two parent household, for my daughter, because it's like, even though I turned out fabulously, okay, even though I
Yes.
turned out fabulously, I still know and understand the importance of a father. And I can only imagine how much greater I could have been had I had a father, or, how different things would have been. Um, but having both mother and father is super important. And so I'm happy that my daughter gets to have that, even though it didn't traumatically affect me. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank God for his grace and his covering, because it could have been so different. Now I'm just breaking the generational curses, if you will.
You better preach up in here. No, because it's like we share the same exact story. It's a little bit different, but my father, he wasn't a part of my life in my, I would say, from 10 all the way to like 22, 23.
Mm,
So I understand that there was a void that was missing in my life. Now, of course, my mom, oh my goodness, I talk about that woman every day because I am just so thankful that she was able to, work two jobs to put
oh,
food
yeah.
on the table, to buy me my first Michael Jordan shoes. She did so much for me just to, look out for me and love me and protect me. But yeah, I pretty much got out of communication with my father when I was 9 or 10, and then I actually, when I was in high school, sorry, scratch that. When I was in college, I just had this yearning to reconnect with him again, and so I found him on the web and got his number, and we started to really just start to connect. And now, I mean, we have a great relationship. God,
Yeah.
definitely, reconciled us together, and he was able to be a part of my wedding and all of that. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah. So God is good, but what I really wanted to point out in both of our situation, and
Uh,
I don't want to get preachy again, Christian. Don't get preachy. I want to try to say this as mellow as I can, but I began to realize when I was in my teenage years that even though my earthly father wasn't a part of my life,
ooh.
heavenly father, he
Ooh.
looked out for me.
Mm,
Right?
Jesus.
So, like you said, you turned out good because you had a system in place, or you had
Mhm.
people in place that were able to provide and protect you.
That's it.
But also, you had God that ultimately looked
Absolutely.
out for you.
And that's something that I didn't necessarily know or recognize or even acknowledge back then. Like looking back now, it's like I see clearly where God was in my life all the time, never left my side, all the things, like whether I acknowledged it or not, whether I knew to acknowledge it or not.
And I also want to go back to what you said earlier because it's so true, Coach.
Uh-oh.
You
What I
talked
say?
about you talked about how it all starts from your childhood years because I think that when you're a child you kind of form your imagination or you form your dreams and you form your goals and you
Yeah.
kind of have some idea of what you want to do in the future. And this is something that I've been thinking about for the last, I would say, month because for me, and I'm gonna kind of like give you some cliff notes on how I, started to become a podcaster. Just like you, people would always come to me asking for advice and
Mhm.
just have conversation. And I realized that I would have conversations with people for an hour or two.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I don't know. This may or may not be in the Bible, but I do feel like there is an anointing called listening. Because I tell you, it's it's crazy. Like people would just come to me and I would just listen. And
That's
at
it.
the end of it all, they'd be like, "Oh, I feel so much lighter." And oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours. I'm like,
It's like I didn't even say anything, but yeah.
right, exactly. But I just found that, man, like people just really just love coming to me either to get wisdom or just for me to listen.
Yeah.
And hence, which is why I started Bar and Friends, because I definitely wanted to use this platform for people to come on like yourself, to be able to
Mhm.
have the space and the opportunity to share your life story.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm listening, but what you said was just so true that, when you're a kid,
Hmm.
you kind of sort of already have an idea of what you want to do. Like, of course, I wanted to be like the next Michael Jordan. And then in high school, I wanted to be, Cisco.
Yeah.
But, God had other plans.
I'm laughing with you. I'm not laughing at
It's
you.
all good. It's all good. But yeah, but it all stems from your childhood. And so fast forwarding you to now, like the last few months, I'm like, man, like I've been knew what I wanted to do. I
Hmm.
wanted to talk to people just about life, about
Yeah.
Christ, about their goals, about their mission in life. And so I'm a little bit late to the party, but
I wouldn't call it late. I would call it everything, on time, everything in due season. I mean, because when you do get that revelation, it's like what I always knew. It's like, man, how much time I could have saved myself, but there is no better time than now. And
right,
that's just with everything. Because even still, I think about when I first got certified in 2016, here we are, 2024. And I'm like, if I would have started coaching back then, it wouldn't even be as nearly as impactful as the way that I'm doing it now.
right.
And that is because, again, I was still missing something, not necessarily the life experience, because God has always given me a way to have wisdom, even about things that I've never been through or situations I've never been in. Because, I mean, that's just the way the Holy Spirit works. Like, you know things that you don't know. And so, and
Yes.
so it's always been that, but I was missing the relationship with God at that point in my life. This walk with God, Christian, this relationship that I have, people think that I've been doing this for a while. I just rekindled this relationship
Stop
at
playing with
the
me.
end of 2022.
Stop playing
2020.
with me.
I'm serious. God and I just got like this October 2022, and I will never forget it. So from then to now, hasn't even been a full 2 years. Hasn't even been a full 2 years. And I am walking with my father like we've been in this.
Because of course you knew about Christ. You
Yep.
had somewhat of a relationship with Christ. So what were you doing before 2023? Like, oh, okay. Were you playing hokey pokey? You had your right foot in and your right foot out. Like, were you playing? Were you being like a lukewarm Christian or?
I So I have this episode on my podcast, and it's the very first episode I launched and got out the gate, got straight out into the air, period. And the episode is titled Don't Call Me a Christian for very specific controversial reasons. And I came out the gate with that because I'm like, I just want to obliterate this whole thing. So when I went off to college and everything like that. I went to Norfolk State my first year of college. Whoop whoop, go Spartans! And then I transferred to Liberty because at that point there was something where I was like, okay, I've grown up knowing God is love. And I grew up in the Catholic school. And I don't know what it was. Well, I mean, at this point, I know what it was, But I was like, I kind of want to learn more about God. Like, I don't know what this curiosity is, but I kind of want to follow that. So I went to, um, I guess I don't want to say a name, but I went to a specific school here in Lynchburg, a specific college here in Lynchburg, where I just knew I would know all things about God and really build this relationship. And to be truthful, it kind of obliterated it for me. Like it ruined it for me. Yeah, it was very shocking. And I guess it was, or not I guess, I know that it was because I grew up. Again, my foundation is knowing that God is love, period. Everything that God does is out of love. Everything that we are called to do is out of love. Everything Jesus did is out of love. God is love. And when I was learning more about him in this institution, it was very, hardcore, religious based, doctrinated, very strict. And the God that I learned about was more so a fear based version of God. As in, like, he was this evil dictator that if you breathe wrong, you are going to hell and he is not pleased with you type of God. And I'm like, this is not it. I don't know who this is, but if this is the type of God that I wanted to learn about, I don't want to do this. Like, why would I want to do it? Why would I want to do that? There's nothing inviting about that. You're trying to scare us into a straight and narrow path, scare us into walk a straight line of perfection that does not exist when we're called to come as we are so that he can make us pure and clean and whole. But I'm supposed to do that. Like, it was just too much. And, we talk about church hurt. That was my church hurt. My church hurt wasn't from a church experience, but it was from this school and learning, like, I guess their perception of God, if you will, or their curriculum based God. Let's say that. Okay. So from that point on, it was more like, you know what? I'm going to take this spiritual walk and simplify it. I went into I may not call it God, I may call it universe. It was one of those situations. I was like, the universe is abundant and God is love and both of those things back and forth. So I guess, a little hot potato 1-2, whatever you called it earlier, but it became one of those situations and it was very, free flowing and it just was comfortable. It was more comfortable. Now when we first moved to Lynchburg, I was 14 and like I said, we church hop a lot. So the church that we ended up coming to here was the Ramp Church. And it was the first place I knew for a fact. When we went in there, we walked in that building and we endured the whole service. I knew. I was like, Mom, if you want to keep church hopping, that's fine. But I know for a fact this is where I want to go. And if I got to wait until I start driving to drive myself here, this is where I want to be. Because it was something about that church. And I would assume the presence of God truly rests there. I can't even assume, I know now for a fact. That shifted something within me at 14. And I knew that I wasn't going to any other church. Like, I'll visit other churches. I don't have a problem with that. But I knew that was my home. That's where my home was. And like I said, because we didn't go every Sunday and the Ramp has moved buildings twice because they have grown so quickly, we didn't know where they went. And I was so sad. I'm like, I wanted to go to this church and I have no idea where they are. So fast forwarding now, the Lab Fitness Club, which was the gym that was started with my brothers, Rob and KJ, when they invited me on to the coach at the lab, they're in the same parking lot as the Ramp Church. So all these years that I've been here and I had no idea where the Ramp Church went, the second they invited me to come and I had to go and visit the gym, I saw the Ramp and I almost cried because I was like, this is insane. I had no idea where they went. So it just shows you the intentionality behind God's plans already. So since then I've been, it took me about a year to even go back to the ramp because I was like, I cannot believe that it's here. I have to tell my mom that I found it. She may not go with me, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. And of course my brothers, they go to church, and Rob also goes to the ramp. He's like, he just keeps inviting me. He's like, come on, come on. But it wasn't them inviting me that kind of shifted me. It was more so seeing the way that they walked with God. Like your first witness to God is not, not necessarily come to church with me or this is what God says. It's showing what it looks like, leading by example. And so I'm also, mind you, at this point, I've been heavy rocking with the universe for a while now. So, and that void, that hurt still kind of surfaced. And one day, my brother and I, we kind of picked it apart. He opened space for me to kind of, like, we talked about it a little bit. And I'm like, but I do remember loving the ramp. So, I'll go one day. I'll go. I just had to work myself up because my feelings were hurt. The God as I knew him was gone because people ruined it. God didn't ruin it. People ruined it. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. Like when you, I guess, you grow up thinking your dad is a hero only to find that he is a villain. It broke my heart. I was disappointed. And so it took me a while to really work up the nerve to go back to his house. And, but when I did, when I did, ooh, the reason why I love the ramp, it was still very potent. And I mean, I kind of haven't looked back since. And then at that point, I wouldn't say I was playing lukewarm Christian because at that point I was learning what it actually looked like to be a Christian. And, I had to have my own personal encounter with God, like outside of the church, outside of people telling me in my house, I had to have a personal encounter with God to really walk the way that I do now. People can tell you everything, they can share their experience, and it's great for edification and understanding. But I had to experience who he was for myself. But the basis of the episode is, and I'm about to get a little messy. Let me sip my coffee. But Christian has such a, not you Christian, but religiously Christian has such a negative connotation to it these days. And it sucks so bad because the first thing that people hear, especially those who've experienced church hurt, the first thing that people hear are Christian equals hypocrites, Christian equals judgmental, Christian equals, holier than thou. Christian equals high and mighty. Christian equals I'm looking down on you because you're not walking with God, but I am. God favors me over you because you're a sinner. Christian equals all of these negative things. So in my podcast, I'm like, so in that aspect, no, don't ever part your lips to call me a Christian in that aspect. But if we are getting 100% concrete on what a Christian actually means, a Christian, by definition, is someone who follows the teachings of Jesus, period. So in that regard, I am 120% a Christian. I follow the teachings of Jesus. I try my best to walk as Jesus did. The cliche, what would Jesus do? That is it. That's what it means to be a Christian. That's what a Christian is. Period. There is no but. There's no ifs. There's no what ifs. There's no questions. There's nothing extra about it. A Christian is someone who follows the teachings of Jesus. They walk in relationship with Jesus. Jesus is their model, their go-to. That's what a Christian is. And I had to break that down in the first episode of my podcast. And I chose that title specifically for the controversial, nosy people who be like, oh, what's this about? Yeah, come on and listen. Come on and get edified real quick. Let me teach you something.
I think that, of course, being a Christian, it is challenging, and sometimes our actions can be hypocritical. But we're not far away from grace.
No,
God
no.
can, forgive us and redeem us. But like you said, and I love when you said this, God is a God that will give us correction out of
That's it.
love.
Out of love.
And like you said, for so many years, people have been teaching us this evil God, that
Mm-hmm.
he's mad at us, and anything that we do or any sin that we commit, we're going to hell.
Yeah, I want to hide in a corner. I want to hide in a corner. I don't want to be anywhere near this guy.
Right.
Because maybe if I stay in the corner, I can't do anything wrong for him to send me to hell. And that's what it does. It makes you want to hide from God. And if the whole basis or point is to get more people to understand him and have a relationship with him to ultimately save their souls, if you will,
Mhm.
then how can we expect people to want to be a part of that? And here's the thing, the only time something is hypocritical, if you will,
Mhm.
is because Christians have painted this picture as they're perfect. And if you paint the picture as you're perfect, when we are all flawed
Come
human
on.
beings, then anything that we do outside of what we preach will immediately contradict everything that we talk about. Now, if Christians become, come on, sit back down. Come on, sit back down. I'm not done. I got some more. Come back. Come back. Now, if Christians will be so bold to stand in their flaws and say, I'm not perfect, but this is what God has done for me, and this is what He is continuing to work on with me. And I think you should try it too. That's way easier to follow and be a part of than I'm perfect. I never make mistakes. And this is why you're going to hell because look at all these things that you've done. We somehow get amnesia to our behaviors. And then we have to do things in secret in order to keep ourselves from being pinpointed as hypocritical. Because if we dare step wrongly or outside of what it means to be a Christian, then guess what? Now we're hypocritical. Now we're contradicting. Now we're a misrepresentation of God. How can we tell people to come as they are if we're out here flaunting perfection that does not exist? We will never be perfect, but we're perfect in Christ.
Mm.
Every time that we try, we're made more and more whole. We will never, ever, ever reach perfection. And the thing is God in the Bible has never called us to reach perfection. All he said was walk with me all the days of your life. That's it. And the closer you get to him, there will be fewer missteps than it would be if you weren't walking with him, but that's as perfect as it gets. So the word hypocrite only comes about because we have portrayed perfection when we're flawed. And people are now expecting, now there's the expectation of perfection. And we can't live up to that because we're flawed. So
Mm.
we have to, as Christians, band together and really walk a perfectly imperfect walk with God.
Yes.
We have to show what it looks like to really walk with Him. And that doesn't mean put all your business out there, be unnecessarily vulnerable. It doesn't mean any of that, but it does mean that we have to extend grace harder than we ever have before because it was extended to us.
We've seen, or I've seen, just church folk,
Mm-hmm.
every Sunday, put on their Sunday best, and we go to church, Now, I don't want to start preaching myself, but it's
No,
like
go ahead. Preach.
we go to church and we sing these songs and we talk our tongue and all these things. And Monday through Saturday, we live in like hell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm speaking to myself because it's like, it's easy for us as Christians to act like you were saying, act and be presentable on the outside, but all jacked up on the inside.
Ooh, we.
And the last 3 years, I have really been working on just a journey of deconstructing my faith. Because for so many years, we think perfection is a Christian,
Yeah.
and that's not. Especially, and I'm going to get a little bit messy here too. When we seen church leaders, church pastors,
Mm-hmm.
just
Go on.
it's you can't hide it. It's everywhere now. So I've been learning to, yes, try my best to glorify God with everything I do, but do I still struggle with temptation? Of course.
We all fall short
You
and
know
do
what I'm
pray
saying?
God.
Do I want to cuss somebody out sometimes? Absolutely.
Okay.
you know, but I
Okay.
think that is what Christ wants. He wants our realness. Because if
That's
we were perfect, then Christ wouldn't have to die.
I'm gonna be, and being real is what started my relationship with God. This relationship that I have now. When I tell you, I basically gave God an ultimatum. Who does that?
Mm.
Who does that? Who gives God Almighty an ultimatum? That's how bold and real I was because I was over it, Christian. I was over it. Okay.
Wow.
So when I had my experience with God, I was just, and I remember it, and it was just so random. So if you think you got to be sitting down in this place where, you got to meet God, wrong. Okay. I was literally standing up in my kitchen washing dishes. My husband was sitting at the table. Very random.
Mm.
I'm washing dishes and I'm just scrubbing. And I was so irritated all day. And I'm just like, you know what? And mind you, all of this is in my head. Okay. I'm not talking out loud. I'm just scrubbing these dishes real hard. And I'm just like, I am so tired of life. Okay. I was like, I am sick of life. I am so, 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 so sick of life. I was in a place where it's like, I'm tired of being told that I'm gifted and all these other things. Oh, you're special and you've got a gift and you're this and you're that. But I ain't seeing none of that. It doesn't make sense. Nothing is adding up. I was tired of it. Right. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm over it. And I'm like, okay, I feel like at this point I've tried everything. Again, this is in my head. I was like, I feel like I've tried everything. And I'm on the verge of not committing physical suicide. I've never gotten to a point where I wanted to commit physical suicide, but spiritual suicide. I was ready to off my spirituality as a whole. And I was like, you know what? I said, I feel like I've tried everything. And then I just hear something. And at this point, it's basically like the audible voice of God, right? And it's like, you haven't tried a relationship with me. He's like, you haven't tried me. And I was like, what? Like, I'm mad. I'm infuriated. I'm infuriated. Like, excuse me? You mean to tell me you got it? You ain't seen my whole life? What do you mean I didn't try you? What are you talking about? Like, I was upset. I was like, so again, in my head, I'm like, what do you mean I haven't tried you? I have tried. You see how that worked out the last time? I did. I tried. I literally went to a school to try. And God was like, no, no, no. And oof. And this is what did it for me. He said, no, you've tried religion, but you have not experienced my spirit. I dropped the dishes. I started crying and I ran upstairs to my room. And I know my husband was sitting there like, what the world just happened? But he didn't. He didn't come after me, and that's how spirit works. Because spirit knew I needed that moment. Because it's like you've tried religion, but you have not tried my spirit. You have not experienced my power. You've not experienced me, and that's when I knew. That's when I recognized there was a difference between religion and God Himself. Right? Like, and the best way that I can put it in plain terms is like actors or musicians, right? We've experienced, who's somebody that I can name? I don't know. I'm not even going to go into naming it, but like we experience them as a musician on stage on fire, but we have not experienced the actual person. And that's how that's what God really was showing me. It's like, no, you've tried everything that everyone thought I was. You've tried all the rules that people said I made. You've tried all those things, but you don't know me. You still don't know me.
You were a fan of him.
I was a fan of him, but I was not a friend. I
Oh,
was not a daughter. I was a fan, but I did not know him personally. So when he said that, or when I heard that, I ran upstairs to my room and I cried. I was like, oh my gosh. And then after I gathered myself together, I said, okay, you know what? Fine. Still trying to be hard, right? Still trying to be hard. That just goes to show you how much work God had to do on me.
yeah.
And I said, you know what, God? I said, I will try again. And I said, and because you blatantly told me, I will do everything in my power to go 100% hard. Like, I'm going to put my best foot forward. And I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try again. Act like I don't know anything. I'm going to try it again. So that I can say, because I'm the person who can't give up unless I know for a fact I've weighed all my options, right? And with great effort. So I said, I'm going to try again. And if this does not work, if you don't work how people say you work, everybody out here experiencing you and talking highly of you, I haven't seen that version of you yet. If you don't work how you're supposed to work, I don't know what you're supposed to do, your God thing, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But that's where my head was. I was like, so if this don't work, then I'm done. I'm done trying to be an entrepreneur. I'm done trying to chase these dreams. I'm done trying to do any of it. I'm tired. I'm just going to work my 9 to 5, find me a 9 to 5, go work my 9 to 5, come home, cook, do the dishes, go to sleep, wake up, work my 9 to 5, come home, do the dishes, cook, sleep. Like, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to be on repeat until I die because I'm over it. That's where I was. And that might as well be suicide. So, and then when I told him that, all I heard was, finally. And I cried again. I cried again. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Whatever. Now, people think that's where, that's just like, oh, and they lived happily ever after at the end. Wrong. Because when you give God your yes, oh, well, the attacks that come. You're not going to be attacked by just doing whatever you want to do. You get attacked when you trying to live right. You get attacked when you trying to learn who God is. Because now the enemy's like, hold up. He raising up another one. Now I got to pay attention. Why her? So, and then it was like, after that, it was like a week later, I got the flu. I got the flu. It was like the worst flu ever, too. Like, what? This is not the regular flu from like the 2000s. Like, what type of flu is this? I don't know this flu, but I was hurt. And all I could think, I was like, see, see, God wanted me to try it, but here I am sick. Like, why you make me be sick? You know, those were the thoughts in my head. Like, okay, sis, chill. Like, relax. Relax. And so I was like, now reminding myself, I say, nope, nope. You said you was gonna try. You said you was gonna try. You know, maybe there was just this random time you touched the wrong doorknob and you got the flu. Okay, this ain't God. It has nothing to do with that. Just chill. Stop ready to top it up already. And I was like, nope. I said I was gonna try. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And I was like, I'm just grateful that it's me and not, both me and my husband and daughter. And then my daughter got the flu 2 days later, and I was like, okay. I said, see, now that one right there, when my daughter gets sick, that is what drives the dagger in me. Because I'm like, oh, my baby, though, my baby.
Right, right.
And I was like, you know what? It's fine. All is well. God is good. And when I tell you, I had that on repeat. Like they say, fake it till you make it. That's what I was doing. I was like, you know what? Nope. I said, it's fine. God's got it. God has it. He has it. It's fine. It's just the flu. It's fine. Then a couple weeks later after that, a deer decided to hit a car while I was driving. Car was in the shop. They said, mind you, this is all in October. The second I gave God my yes, all this is a series of events. This is over like a 2-3 week span. Car was in the shop. They said I wasn't going to be able to get my car back until March. It is October. What do you want me to do?
Mm, mm,
I said,
mm,
it's
mm.
fine. God's got it. It's cool. It's fine. But I recognized I started leaning into it. That fake it till you make it kind of worked because I started leaning into it like I wasn't as upset about my car or as stressed out as I normally would have been. And that's when I started to recognize like, I'm leaning into something here.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that period, from October to December, he kind of isolated me. I created a prayer room in my basement. I turned my home gym into a prayer room. It's beautiful. And that's kind of just where I went to make sure I was having this time. I didn't know how to pray. So a lot of my talks with God were talks with God. I didn't know like the formal, I guess, way of praying. It was just dialogue until, I grew into knowing. But again, it was real. Our relationship was built on rawness and realness of where I am emotionally and spiritually and mentally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
God, this is where I am today. I don't know what you're doing, but I said I'm going to try and I'm trying. This is me showing up. I hope you honor it. That was a lot of my talks sometimes, but
Yeah.
he did. He showed up and he honored that because I was not faking. I wasn't acting. I was literally trying. He knew my heart. I really did want to try. And he honored that. Got my car back 3 months earlier than I was supposed to. Because
Mm.
again, so in that 3 months I was isolated, October, November, December, he spoke to me about so many different things. And one of the things was, pick back up your life coaching again and all these other things. So when January hit, it has been a complete snowball effect of all great things. So it's like he had to see if I was going to endure. Like I gave him my yes. Are you going to endure? Like, are you really in this to know me? Like, do you really, really, really want this? You really want to get to know me? Or are you just in it because people say that I'll bless you? It was like a test. I was being tested October, November, December. And then once he's like, you know what? I see you. You in it. Let's go. January 2023, nothing but great things. Nothing but great things.
And that's the end of the pod. Because
Yeah.
listen, I already got my title and everything. But no, again, Coach, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for sharing a bit of your testimony. We're going to get to all of it in part 2, but thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this space. Thank you for your yes in doing this podcast. And just continue your walk. Just lean in. Go deeper. That's all I can say.